just going to tee it up for you this way. What the heck happened in Starkville?
I wasn't there. That was the issue.
I mean, what was that?
So that's as poorly as a Chris Jans team has played that I can remember. And even going back to last year with the Southern game, right? They were up double digits in that game in going into the final minutes, and they just blew it, right? If we're talking start to finish, that's about as bad as it's been for Mississippi State. Just miserable. Their fatal flaw, this 3-point shooting defense, has gotten to the point now where you can't really take them seriously as a contender for anything, right? They're kind of like a football team that can't stop the run. You just know on 3rd and 2 you're going to give up a first down. This is the same thing. I know when they get down late in the shot clock, somebody's going to come open and have an open look at 3. And so State just struggles. Second game in a row, Josh Hubbard, I'll say he's back, but what good is it doing Mississippi State? They look so much like last year, these last 2 games, in that they have 2 scores. Hubbard is doing well. Keyshawn Murphy's had back-to-back great games, but nothing, literally 0 points. 0 for 5 shooting for Kugel. Melendez had 3. I think Harris had 8, but it just a couple of 3-pointers in there. He shot poorly. Cam Matthews not doing much for you offensively. Nwoko, nothing. This is not how you can win. You can't win with just Hubbard and Murphy getting you points. You got to get balance. You need Kugel and Melendez and Harris to be between 7 and 15 points apiece. That's how State wins. So they played terrible offensively and made up for it by playing even worse defensively. Missouri shooting 55%, 46% from behind the arc.
46.9. We're going to round it up.
Another game of 15 three-pointers given up. You can't beat anybody like that. And so
got out rebounded by 8 as well.
We talk in football a lot about how the bye week comes at a good time. This is a good week for State to not have a midweek game because they have got a lot to figure out. The good news for State is this. They figure it out. Just win a few more games. They'll be in the NCAA tournament. But right now, I can't look at them as a serious contender to go into the second weekend. Like that, they'll be a tournament team, but that I don't know how much further they can go than that.
So Josh Hubbard leads the Bulldogs in scoring. He has 24. Really efficient yet again for Hubbard. 7 of 13, great. Including 6 of 11 from 3. Keyshawn Murphy, you mentioned 6 of 8 from the field, had 16 points. No other Bulldog had more than 6 in the game.
Yeah, and that's just, you can't win like that. This team was built to have balanced scoring throughout the lineup for Kugel and Melendez and Harris and Cam to all be challenging for double figures. And if you're not going to get that, well, then you better play that same style of defense that Chris Jans was playing the first 2 years. But they don't have that, and that's the biggest issue because defense, as you know, Michael, there's a lot of effort involved, right? It's less about X's and O's and more about Jimmy's and Joe's when you're talking about basketball defense. And so to see State just consistently, week after week, now look, Missouri hit a couple of 3-pointers that you can't do anything about.
Yeah,
they
Grill made 2 of them that was just like,
35-foot-plus shots. I can't do anything about that. But there are just so many open looks with this defense, and they just don't play with that same energy that you saw the past couple of seasons under Chris Jans.
So they gave up 47% from 3, 15 made threes, but you're not winning many games if you only score 61 on your home floor as well.
That's the other side of that, yeah.
So have they just regressed offensively? What is going on there? Because you can't blame Hubbard for this one. You can't blame him for the last one either. He's been really good each of the last 2 games.
You thought with the way they were scoring before this, when Hubbard was not playing as well, you're like, man, if Hubbard ever gets going, this team is going to be putting a lot of points on the board. Now that Hubbard's going, nobody else is scoring for some reason. Kugel was 0 for 5 in this game. He's played terribly these past 2 games. Melendez, I know he got injured in the Alabama game, but he played terribly on Saturday. Cam Matthews has just become a guy that, he gets you some rebounds and some assists, but you're not getting anything out of him offensively whatsoever. They've got to find more offense, for sure. I don't know, they scored 84 points on Alabama, but in that game, with the way the pace was, that's not surprising. And, of course, Hubbard had 38 in that game.
Yeah, he was unconscious.
So, yeah, I mean, you think about what he had on Saturday. Well, what's 14 more points, right? They'd had 80. Or they would have had 75. So that's a decent enough number at least. So I don't know. They're in a funk. There's just no other way to put it right this second. Something's off with this team. They're underachieving right now. They should not have this many losses.
Only 13 made baskets that were not by Josh Hubbard in the game.
Can't win like that. I think Hubbard was 6 for 11 from 3.
6 of 11 from 3.
The rest of the team is 2 of 15.
The rest of the team was 2 of 15.
You can't win like that. You cannot win like that. So they have a lot going on right now, and they've got to figure it out pretty quickly. Like I said, this week, not having a midweek maybe helps. Georgia does play a midweek. They host LSU. Georgia's a team that's lost 5 out of 6. Getting LSU is probably a blessing for them. And then this game on Saturday is going to be a very big game for both of those teams in their tournament hopes.
Yeah, LSU possibly on Q word watch here coming up if they keep stacking losses. They got smoked by Texas on Saturday. This stretch for Mississippi State is absolutely brutal. And that's what you mentioned.
It's every game in the conference.
It's every game in the conference. This 6-game stretch, though, is especially tough.
I would break it down to 3-game stretch, right? This is the next 3 games for State. They go to Georgia, they host Florida, and then they go to Ole Miss. 2 ranked teams in there. One of them's on the road. 2 road games. It doesn't matter. You need to be 2-1. It doesn't matter which.
That's a tough ask.
It's tough, but you've got to be 2-1. And I don't care who it is. You split with Ole Miss, but you win the other 2, who cares? If you lose to Florida, but you win the 2 road games, who cares? You lose to Georgia, it's kind of funky because now you're talking about you've lost, 3-4 straight? But if you win the next 2, nobody cares. But 2-1 in the next 3 is a must for this team.
Mississippi State is 2-5 in their last 7 for what it's worth. After that Ole Miss game, it's A&M at Oklahoma at Alabama.
You could probably need to be 2-1 there too. I mean, I think you can beat Oklahoma. You're a better team than Oklahoma, I'll put it this way. But then A&M is really good, and so is obviously winning at Alabama is going to be incredibly tough. But I mean, that's the name of the game. You got to find some wins. It's the
got to find 4 more.
It's the point of the season where you got to start winning games. Mm-hmm. And you had a great chance against Kentucky, and you let it get away. You had a great chance against Alabama, and you let it get away. You played terribly on the road against Auburn and Tennessee, and then you play terribly at home. You got to shake this off and start playing winning basketball again.
Somebody asked, should Keyshawn Murphy have to get more minutes just to get his perimeter defense on the floor?
I think he's talking about Sean Jones.
Sean Jones.
I mean, but that's a black hole offensively, though. What you need is for Melendez, Kugel, and Harris to play better defensively. That's what you need to have happen. And you need for those guys to play better offense. You just need those guys to play better. Those are your big 3 transfers that you brought in. They need to show up.
Another message, that's right, hey, Dad, they just backed up and let him have it. And like you said, there's a couple of that Grill made where you just put your hands up and say, what can I do?
Yeah.
But you're right, there are way too many. And it's not open looks, like after a bunch of I don't know how much of the Ole Miss Auburn game that you watched. Auburn's ball movement is unbelievable.
That's why they're an elite team.
They're an elite team. Missouri didn't have to do unbelievable stuff to get open looks. They didn't have to have 5 passes where they get the ball to the block and he gets doubled. And no, none of that. It's just very simple offense is creating easy open looks for State's opponents right now.
It's really something. I would have if I thought coming into the season offensively this team was going to be much better because of the quality of scorers they had recruited out of the transfer portal. So I knew they might not be as good defensively, right? I knew that. But this is not what they're doing is beyond that. They're playing poorly. And
it's so counter to the identity of a James team.
Yeah, we think about the last 2 years and the way State played defense. Nobody wanted to play Mississippi State because you're like every possession is such a battle. And now it's just you get easy buckets on State, and they're not able to answer. It'd be one thing if these guys were scoring. If you have the exact same game, but Kugel has, he shot 5 shots, right? So say Kugel has 12 and Melendez has 9 and Harris has 11. Well, then it's a different game, right? If your scorers are scoring, but when they're not scoring and they're not defending, well, how the hell are you supposed to win?